So what does it mean if that state breaks apart due to political divisions? The petition right now to split California into 3 states just got enough signatures to go on the ballot this fall. It actually could happen. Tim Draper is one of the most famous venture capitalists in the world, a person who helped start a lot of famous tech companies. He wrote the Cal 3 petition, and he joins us tonight. Tim, thanks for coming on.
Great. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me on your show.
So I'm not really sure what to think of this. It seems like it's possible. It sounds like it's going to be voted on. It could pass in California. Maybe the Congress will approve it. I can understand why California wants to break into 3 states, because it's too big, it's unmanageable, and it's not working. Why would that be good for the rest of the country?
Well, that's a good question. Well, we know that at least 600,000 Californians want to make sure that we've got Cal 3 passes. And so I think that the rest of the country will just want to do what's right for California. I mean, it takes up the same land mass as 15 states on the East Coast. Right. The population is the equivalent of an average of 6 or 7 states. So I think it's appropriate to have California represented by at least 3 states.
Right. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of Americans don't want to do what's best for California. Just me, for myself, maybe. But we've got a map on the screen here. So the top would be no-Cal, the bottom SoCal, and then Cal would be Los Angeles. Looks like Orange County, maybe some of it. So how would this break up politically? So each state would have 2 senators and then the representative number of members of Congress. But what do you think the political division would be, Republican, Democrat?
Well, you know, I think what we're really looking at here is we're trying to create states for the next millennial. The blockchain's changing everything. Government is going to be completely different. This isn't a partisan thing one way or another. It's something that the world really needs, and to get a fresh start, I believe that California has the opportunity to now get better representation and get a fresh start. So 3 new states can be created.
Right, but it is a
states can take on whatever kind of governance that they think is appropriate for the next millennial.
Right, but it's a partisan system
that we've got that's kind of ruining California.
So you've got about I was just saying it's a partisan system, though. So the rest of us are affected by the balance of, say, the Senate, and it should be interesting to know what new balance we'd get if this happened. But let me just ask you finally, one of the many things California would divide is its debt.
I actually think that these 3 new states are going to empower people to realize what's possible in government, and then all these governments will realize that they can do a better job, and they can potentially compete with one another down the road for citizens, and which is what they kind of do now. But California is kind of a monopoly. Nobody wants to leave, but we're still stuck with the same government we've had for all these years, and it's failing our kids. It's failing our. It's not safe here. We have many homeless people. We have a lot of big problems. The education system is just about the worst in all 50 states, and it's the biggest state. So it really does need sort of a revamp and a restart, and I think this is a good start to doing that, because then people can say, well, let's start from first principles. How do we empower these people? How do we create these new states? And how do we make these states really important and relevant for the next millennial? And how do we set a good example for all the other states in the country?
I think that, it can't be worse than it is now. So I think you make a fair point. Tim Draper, thank you very much for that. You should not be celebrating this development. You should be worried. It is a threat to you and the country, and here's why. Bank of America is the 2nd largest American bank by assets. A lot of nice people work there. It's huge. It holds more than 10% of all bank deposits in America. The company is big enough that if it aligned with other companies and took direction from progressive groups, as it is in this case, it could make sweeping changes to America without even a single vote being cast. This is a change. It used to be that political activists lobbied lawmakers in Congress when they wanted something changed. They gave money, Those donations were recorded. The rest of us could see it happen. That's happening less and less. Now, they lobby big companies. And the lobbying is done in secret. There's no transparency at all. You might not even know it's happening, and yet it can affect your life immensely, as much as any federal law. Today, it's gun makers. You might be celebrating that. But what if tomorrow it's someone you agree with, or anyone who holds ideas that our leaders find threatening? Pro-life, are you? Opposed to immigration? Suspicious of Wall Street? Corporate America isn't comfortable with those views. So suddenly, I don't know, you can't get a car loan, or a mortgage, or fill in the blank. A version of this is actually already happening in China on a very large scale. Citizens there are rated on the basis of their obedience to the prevailing orthodoxy. Those who disagree are punished in the marketplace. This is significant because our corporate elites love China. It's a model for them. There's no messy democracy to contend with, and people get rich. In China, corporate power is the same as political power. Ideologues and companies work together, and ordinary people obey because they have no choice. Suddenly, America is moving in that direction. It's ominous. Bank of America ought to stick to banking. It does a good job at that, and it's safer for everybody when they stay in their lane. Antoine Seawright is founder and CEO of Blueprint Strategy and a gun control supporter, and he joins us tonight. Antoine, thanks for coming on. So,
thanks, Tucker, for having me. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. So I understand that you agree with the aims of this. Progressive groups apply pressure to corporate America, and people get in line or they're punished. I get that you like the outcome. But can you see that democracy dies a little bit when this is how we solve our political differences? Why, if you want to change gun laws, wouldn't you, in full view of the rest of the country, go to Congress and make your case? But you're not doing that, are you?
Well, let me tell you what I agree with. What I agree with is what majority of this country agree with, and that is the fact that we need to do something about this issue of guns in this country to prevent another mass shooting from happening. I agree with 75% or somewhere north of that agree with. And look, I commend Bank of America.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to be clear. Those numbers don't mean anything. Something should be done.
Tucker, they may not mean anything.
I agree with that. Okay, but there's no national movement to get Bank of America or Citibank to punish people for violating liberal orthodoxy on guns. There just isn't. This is the result of lobbying from left-wing groups.
Tucker, this is not about the left or the right. This is about common sense. This is about common sense gun reform measures. Look, if Washington, D.C., dysfunctional city, does not step up to the plate and do what needs to be done in this country, I commend corporations for having a corporate responsibility to do things in which the government will not do.
So,
look,
in other words, democracy takes too long. No, I understand. Look, you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet, whatever it takes. Will you be as comfortable when corporate... No, let me ask you this. No, hold on. I want to take what you just said and extend it into the future. When companies decide that, I don't know, pick a group, Black Lives Matter, has incited riots and said racist things, which it has, all of a sudden, if you're affiliated with Black Lives Matter, you like a Facebook post by Black Lives Matter, you can't get a car loan, because why would we abet this kind of crap? How will you feel about that?
Well, I would feel, keep in mind, Tucker, there's been a period of history in this country where corporations and businesses have denied and done similar things to certain groups of people who live in this country. So we've been there before, but I learned to take... Tucker, I've learned to take battles one fight at a time. And guess what? You, as a private citizen, have the right to not shop with Bank of America.
So here's the left lecturing me on the free market.
Tucker,
I love this. Yeah.
Tucker, let me give you a thought to consider, and I'm sure you've heard this hymn before. We can't look to government to solve all of our problems. Therefore, I commend the private sector for stepping up to the plate, willing to do what lawmakers will not willing to do.
It's very clever. Of course, we both know you don't believe a word of it. This is purely transactional. You get what you want.
I believe it in this case,
necessary.
Tucker. Why can't you agree with me?
America to make me obey, that's totally cool with you. But if it whipped around and bit you in the butt, you'd be totally against it, wouldn't you?
Tucker, why can't you agree with me that it takes the private sector and government to get things done sometimes in this country? Why can't you agree with that
Where did you get these talking points? Were you an intern for Paul Ryan at one point? I mean, I guess what's so Orwellian about this?
What I stand for is common sense gun reform measures that make sense, and I commend the private sector
just for fun.
stepping up to the plate.
Try to utter a sentence that is straightforward and actually means what it sounds like. take. Let's take all of the propaganda, all the can't out of this, and just say what we mean. Well, what you mean clearly is whatever we need to do to make people obey, including using banks or whatever instrument, we're happy to do because the ends justify the means. If you just say that, you know what? I will genuflect before you in gratitude for your honesty. Will you just say that?
Tucker, bless your heart, and I know you want to put things in my mouth to make something sound a certain way, but that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is I commend corporations like Bank of America and others who have stepped up to the plate and who are willing to do what lawmakers in Washington, D.C. and across the country are not willing to do.
You and the Chinese government, I can see that. Antoine, thank you so much for joining us.
You didn't, frankly, have the balls to put country before party.